If you're 15 here today, you can wield tremendous influence on your social networking site. Some of you, through your Facebook page, you preach to a bigger congregation than I preach to on Sunday. The stronger your relationships, the stronger your influence. The weaker your relationships, the weaker your influence. Your friend is likely to have a greater influence on you than they will on a complete stranger.
Welcome to Maximize Life, the television broadcast from New Wine Church, London. Jesus said, I have come that you may have life and have it more abundantly. Our mandate is to challenge you to be all you can be. So get ready to be encouraged, enriched, and empowered. You will never be the same again. Now here is your host, Pastor Michael Olawore.
Thank you so much for joining us on the broadcast today. This is Maximize Life, where we encourage you to be all that you can be. I am Michael Olawore, your host and the senior pastor of New Wine Church in Woolwich, London. Today we are looking at a message by Dr. Tayo Adeyemi, the founding pastor of New Wine Church, London, who has gone home to be with the Lord. Today's message is titled, No Access, No Influence. No access, no influence. Stay tuned.
Let me tell you a story, and this is a true story. One of my friends shared this with me. A guy worked with a company for many years, did very well, and decided it was time to move on. And so he had two bosses that he reported to. And so at his send-off due, one of the bosses said to him, he said, Joseph, one of the things I'm really going to miss about you is that when you're gone, I won't have anyone to chat with who supports Arsenal like you and I do. And then the other boss got up and said, Joseph doesn't support Arsenal, he supports Manchester United. Because what the guy did was found out which club each of his bosses supported. And so when he went to the one boss, he said, Man U forever. He went to the other boss and said, Arsenal. Now, that is manipulative. That is duplicitous. But you get the point, ladies and gentlemen. Connect with the interests of people. You know, a lot of people enter into a relationship wanting to get the other person interested in them. No. That's not how to get a person's attention. You begin to show interest in people. Listen closely to me today. How many of you have tried to preach to someone of another religion? Now, it can be difficult, right? Let me tell you the way to break down the barrier. First, tell them to tell you about their faith. Tell them, and be serious, be genuine about this. I want to learn everything possible about your faith. You know what happens the moment you do that? All the barriers come crashing down. And if they truly share with you about their faith and you listen attentively, the next thing that happens is they now have an obligation to listen about your faith. I'm telling you the truth. I remember I bumped into a guy in a store in India, and I said to him, tell me about Hinduism. And he stood there and told me he didn't really know much about it. But he told me he did his best. I said, okay, now let me tell you about Christianity. And we stood right there in that store. He didn't quite give his life to Christ, but a seed was planted. Do you know what I'm talking about today? But the key message I want you to take with you today is this. You can only influence people if you have access to them. In 2 Kings chapter 5, we read the story of Naaman, the Syrian general who was struck with leprosy. And we read of a young girl, a maid, a Jewish maid in his home. That little girl influenced him to go seek help from Elisha the prophet. Why was she, a little slave girl, the Bible calls her actually, why was she able to influence this great prestigious general? Because she had access to him through his wife. In the book of Esther, we read of a young immigrant girl who has the power to influence King Ahasuerus to spare the lives of her people. Why did Esther have the power to influence the king? because she had access. Somebody say access. So be thinking about that. Be thinking about that. Every time you're thinking of influencing someone, ask yourself, do I really have the access to do what I'm about to do? Tell your neighbor, no access, no influence. Now, very quickly, let me touch on indirect access. You know, you do not have to have direct physical contact with the person before you have access to them. The power of today's technology means that you can have access to people who are thousands and thousands of miles away, and consequently, you can influence them. When I stand on this pulpit on a Sunday morning to preach, or any other time, I am directly having access to the people in this room. But ultimately, I have indirect access to multiplied hundreds of thousands, probably millions around the world. As a matter of fact, at the last tally, all our TV broadcasts around the world reach every week 120 million people. 120 million. Just yesterday, we bumped into someone who walked up to me and said, I know you because I've seen you on God channel. I've seen you when I go to other countries. You keep me awake every night, he said. In the past week, we received a phone call from Libya. Ladies and gentlemen, from Libya. And the guy said, I want to buy this series, and I want to buy that series, and I want to buy that one, and I want to buy the other one, and I want to buy the one he's preaching now. Access, indirect access through the technology of media. Are you hearing me today? Are you hearing me today? And perhaps one of the most powerful tools of influence in our world today is the television. Listen closely to me. Don't underestimate the power of television. Many of us dress the way we dress. Many of us use the products we do because of television. As a matter of fact, hear this. A couple of years ago, a study was carried out, and it revealed that for every hour of television you watch per week, you spend 175 pounds more per year for every hour of television. And so, if you watch 6 hours of television a week, and most people watch way more than that, 6 hours a week, that means this year you are going to spend an extra 1,050 pounds just because of what you saw on television, and you will never make the connection. Someone was interviewed. He went to the bread section and he picked Wonder Bread in America. And they said to him, why did you pick Wonder Bread? Did you pick it because of the TV commercial? He said, no, that's silly. They said, okay, why did you pick it? He said, because it makes you strong in 12 different ways. You got it, you got it, you got it. An actor on a sitcom once took off his shirt to reveal his bare chest. He wasn't wearing a vest or a singlet underneath. The very next day, the sales of singlets and vests plummeted. The next day. A few years ago, a movie was released called Coma. In this movie, hospital patients were being murdered so that their organs could be harvested and sold. The following year, in American hospitals, organ donations dropped by 60%. In Brazil, for many years, the government has been trying to encourage family planning with no success because Brazilians believe in having large families, 10 children, etc. Then all of a sudden, the government noticed that there was a sharp drop in birth rate, and they didn't understand why. After a thorough investigation, they discovered that the drop in birth rate was coincided with the launch of several soap operas on television, what they call in Brazil telenovelas. The one thing that all these telenovelas had in common was that they portrayed small nuclear families that were successful and happy. So what the government could not do in decades, television accomplished in 1 quarter. A top executive of MTV was being interviewed by a group of sociology students. They were the students of Dr. Tony Campolo. Some of you would have heard that name. One of the students asked the executive how much influence the MTV network had on teenagers. The executive answered, "We don't influence teenagers, we own them." What's the point I'm making with all these examples? Television is an extremely powerful medium of influence. So listen, why did I tell you that? I want you to go away from here determined that you will not be on the receiving end of TV influence, you will be on the giving end. You will not be the one being influenced, you will be the influencer. Now, how will that happen? Some of you here will work in media. Some of you here will own TV stations. But don't wait till that time. Right now, you can influence the output on TV. If you don't like something on TV, write to the station that put it there. You might say to yourself, they wouldn't listen to me, they will ignore my letter. You don't know, maybe your letter will be the final one, the 100,001st letter that will make the difference. And of course, those stations know that for every letter that is written, there are probably 10,000 people who didn't bother to write. So your letter makes a difference. But by the same token, if a TV station puts out a program that you really like, write to them. Nowadays, you don't even need a stamp. Send an email and tell them, that was wonderful. More of that kind of program, please. That's how you begin to influence what happens on TV. Are you hearing me today? But listen, I just told you how powerful the television is. There is now another medium that is many times more powerful than television. And we have not even begun to scratch the surface yet. It's the internet. The internet. Do you know that there are some video clips on YouTube that now have reached 100 million hits? There are some video clips that every week, 5 million new hits. Every week. I went on Wikipedia a few days ago. And let me tell you what I came up with. And I'm saying this especially for you young people. How many young people in the house this morning? Okay, those are not my young people. I'm talking of new wine, fired up young people. Now, most of you are on social networking sites. Facebook, MySpace, Twitter, Bebo, High Five. I went on Wikipedia a few days ago and I found that Facebook has 350 million registered users. The largest social networking site in the world. Now, those are just the registered users. The links, the connected links are about 700 and something million. MySpace has 130 million registered users. Twitter has 75 million. And there are others like Friendster, Bebo, High Five. In India and Brazil, Orkut is very big. In China, Qzone is very big. Now, if you have indirect access to that many people, you have to start being intentional about your influence. Young people, don't go on your Facebook page to just have a chat. When you go with a mission. Are you hearing me? And you don't need to know a lot of Bible. You don't need to go to Bible school. And you don't need to be 45 years old. If you're 15 here today, you can wield tremendous influence on your social networking site. Some of you, through your Facebook page, you preach to a bigger congregation than I preach to on Sunday. Am I talking? My goodness. If you took the message you heard on Sunday and broke it into 5 parts, and Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, you put a little bit out there, the first thing they're all going to say is, how come you are so smart? But listen, you will be influencing lives. But I'm just talking about the message you hear on church on Sunday. See that you're going out there on a mission. Last year, September, I was asked to be a judge at an award ceremony, the Web and the Christian Web and Blog Awards. And in order to do my job, I needed to visit about 130 different websites. That experience was an absolute eye-opener for me. One of the sites that completely blew me away was this site by a young girl. She's only 14 years old. I think it was called Faithful Catholic Girl or something like that. I can't remember what it was called, but something with Catholic Girl in it. You could Google it and look for it yourself. Now, this girl, 14 years old, she won. She actually won in her category because I voted for her. When she came to receive her award, she was so shy, so introverted, so unassuming. She couldn't even look the audience in the face. But this girl sits behind a PC at home and cranks out stuff that will blow your mind as an adult. I mean, she's championing anti-abortion causes, encouraging people to go on this website and register and go on that website and vote and do this and complain. And she's putting out stories out there talking about the fact that she's honoring God with her body at the age of 14. My friend, you are 21. You are not too young. Hello? God said to Jeremiah, before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I sanctified you. I ordained you a prophet to the nations. I don't know how many nations Jeremiah spoke to. But here you are today. You can sit in your bedroom and address people in 150 nations at the click of a button. Are you hearing me, young people? Go out there with a mission. Go out there with a message. Oh, Pastor Tayo, I won't be popular on Facebook anymore. Trust me, there are enough people waiting for your leadership. I want to stir you young people up. God said to Jeremiah, I called you to be a prophet to the nations. He said, person, I cannot talk. God said, don't say you're a young person, for you shall go to all to whom I shall send you, and you shall speak to them all that I command you. You have tremendous power at your disposal. Be intentional about your influence. My time is up, but I need to quickly just talk to you about the third law of influence. What's the first law of influence? The law of intentionality. What does it say? It says that influence is most effective when it is intentional. What is the second law of influence? The law of access. What does it say? It says that you can only influence people if you have access to them. The third law of influence is the law of relationships. The law of relationships. This law states that influence travels on the bridge of relationships. Influence travels on the bridge of relationships. You are more likely to influence people if you have a relationship with them. And the stronger the relationship, the stronger the influence. I just told you the story of a guy who bought bread because he saw the ad on television without knowing that that's what he was doing. Now, there are some of us who have developed resistance to advertisements. We just don't bother anymore. However, I guarantee you that every lady in this room has a product in their cosmetic bag that a friend recommended to them. Every lady in this room. You have something in your bathroom cupboard that a friend told you about. We pay attention to the words of people with whom we have a relationship. And what multinational companies cannot achieve with millions and billions of pounds of advertisement, your friend can achieve with words of mouth, because there is a bridge upon which that relationship, the influence travels, and it's called the bridge of relationship. Are you hearing me today? And so here is the deal. If you want to increase the power of your influence, increase the strength of your relationships. The stronger your relationships, the stronger your influence. The weaker your relationships, the weaker your influence. Your friend is likely to have a greater influence on you than they will on a complete stranger. You are more likely to have a greater influence on your children than you will on your neighbor's children. Now, let me give you another law, a sub-law under the law of relationships. Let's call it the law of value. The higher the value you place on a person, the higher the influence they have on you. Now, in the context of relationships, hear this now. In the context of relationships, influence is equity. Influence is what? Equity. Every time you relate to a person or interact with a person with whom you have a relationship, you are either spending your influence, thereby diminishing it, or building your influence, thereby increasing it. I don't have the time to really delve into this today, but last year I preached a message, a series titled Laying the Foundation for a Prosperous New Year. How many of you remember? And in that series I taught a message called Manage Your Relationships. And in that message I told you about deposits and withdrawals. Every time you interact with people, you're either making a deposit or you're making a withdrawal. For instance, if every time you meet your friend or you call them, you're always asking them to do you a favor, you're always asking them to lend you money, what will happen to your influence? It will diminish very quickly. If on the other hand, every time you meet them, you're always enriching their life, always encouraging them, always adding to them, what will happen to your influence? It will increase. And so this brings us back to the giver-taker principle. That's why Jesus said it is more blessed to give than to receive. But the key point I want to make here is this. If you want to increase your influence, build relationships. Go out of your way to be kind to people. When you meet people, don't build walls, build bridges. Have you ever entered a lift before? And the person in the lift, everything about them says, don't even try to talk to me. Has it ever happened to you before? Let me tell you what I do. I just like to wind people like that up. And I come in and then I put on my chirpy voice. Hello. And many times they're irritated and they look up. And then I get under their nose and I say, good morning. It's a lovely day today, isn't it? You have a busy day today? But learn to build bridges. Learn to build bridges. Don't build walls. Learn to build bridges. Do your best to build strong, positive relationships. Now, it may not always be down to you, but as long as it lies in your power, be at peace with all men. You never know when you're going to need to make a withdrawal from your influence equity in a relationship.
I trust that this message has enriched you and challenged you to be all that you can be. If you have any questions, comments, or prayer requests about what you have heard today, do not hesitate to contact me using the details on your screen, and I will be glad to serve you as best as I can. Also, if you happen to be in or visiting the London, Essex, or Kent area of the United Kingdom, we encourage you to come and worship with us at New Wine Church. All our service details are on your screen right now. God bless you.
We hope you have been blessed by today's broadcast. For more details about the dynamic ministry of Dr. Tayo Adeyemi, please contact us using the details on your screen or visit newwine.co.uk.